What does it mean to be a grown-up in 2025? A mortgage, a marriage, 2.4 children neatly arranged in the back of a sensible car. I've spent a lot of my career observing people on the fringes, exploring worlds that seem unusual from the outside. Yet, one of the most curious shifts in modern life isn't happening in some far-flung subculture. It's happening right here in ordinary flats and shared houses across Britain. The traditional markers of adulthood seem to be dissolving, replaced by something more fluid, more uncertain, and for many, more communal. It's a quiet revolution behind closed doors. I find myself wondering about the lives unfolding in these spaces. Imagine a 34-year-old solicitor making tea. In a kitchen she shares with a graphic designer and a part-time yoga instructor. They coordinate whiteboard schedules for cleaning and argue mildly over who finished the oat milk. This isn't a student house full of chaotic youth and cheap lager. This is adulthood. Let's look at the data because the anecdotes are backed up by some rather startling figures here in the UK. Recent research, conducted as we head towards the end of 2025, paints a very clear picture. The number of people aged 30 to 45 living in shared accommodation has, I'm told, more than doubled in the last decade. It's a staggering increase. It suggests that what was once a temporary arrangement for recent graduates has become a long-term housing solution for established professionals. These aren't people failing to launch. These are people who have launched only to find the runway is prohibitively expensive. The primary driver is, of course, the cost of living crisis, which seems to have become a permanent feature of British life. Rents have soared to eye-watering levels, particularly in cities like London, Bristol, and Edinburgh. Wages, for most, have simply not kept pace. Research from housing charities shows that in many urban areas, the average rent for a one-bedroom flat now consumes over half of the average take-home pay. It's simple, brutal arithmetic. For many, the choice isn't between living alone or with roommates. It's between living with roommates or moving back in with their parents, or in some cases, not having a home at all. I spoke to a housing analyst who put it to me in very direct terms. He said, "The social contract is broken." This isn't just a peculiar British problem, though the flavour of it here is distinct. When you look across the Atlantic to the United States, you see a similar, if not more pronounced, trend. New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco. The concept of the 30-something roommate is firmly entrenched. Data from the US Census Bureau reveals the percentage of adults aged 30 to 40 living with non-family members has been steadily climbing for years. The causes are familiar: spiraling rents, student loan debt, wage stagnation. It seems this new model of adulthood is a feature of the modern Western economy. In continental Europe, the picture is a little more varied. Berlin, shared living, or Wohngemeinschaften, WGs, has a longer, culturally accepted history. There's a social element to it, a choice for community. However, in other capitals like Paris, Dublin, the pressures are much like those in London. The housing crisis is a dominant political issue, and the number of professionals sharing accommodation well into their 30s and 40s is on the rise. While the housing crisis is the undeniable headline act, there are other, more subtle currents at play here. The very nature of work and life has changed. The rise of the gig economy. Short-term contracts means that financial stability can be precarious, even for those with impressive CVs. The idea of a job for life has all but vanished. This economic uncertainty makes taking on a 25-year mortgage feel like a terrifying leap, and the commitment of a solo tenancy can feel the same. Sharing the financial burden with roommates is a rational way to mitigate that risk. Furthermore, we are witnessing a significant delay in traditional life milestones. People are getting married later in life. ONS data shows the average age for a first marriage in the UK has crept into the early 30s. This demographic shift has a direct impact on housing needs. Historically, marriage often triggered a new independent household. With singledom extending into adulthood, living with friends or acquaintances becomes more appealing. It fills a gap, providing companionship and a shared home life. Finally, we cannot ignore the quiet epidemic of loneliness. More digital connection, yet more isolation. So, what does this all mean for the future of our society? On one hand, you could see this trend as a positive adaptation. It fosters community, it reduces loneliness, it promotes a more efficient use of housing stock. It's a more sustainable, communal way of living. Perhaps the nuclear family in the suburban home was never the only valid model for a happy life. This new reality could be forcing us to develop stronger communities, to rely more on our friends, and to be more collaborative in our daily lives. However, there is a more troubling interpretation. This trend could be seen as a glaring symptom of a society that is failing its younger generations. It signals a breakdown in the promise of social mobility and suggests that a secure, independent life is becoming a privilege reserved for the already wealthy. The constant stress of housing insecurity, the lack of privacy, and the inability to put down roots can take a significant toll on mental health and well-being. Is it truly a choice if the only alternative is unaffordable? It feels, in many ways, like a forced compromise. This shift has profound implications for the future.